So today I'm going to be working on my 2020 Polaris RZR Pro XP, more specifically a fuel issue that I've been having. Basically, the code that's popped up was a P0195 code, which pertains to the fuel rail pressure sensor. Now, I'm going to dive in it a little bit more a little bit later, but first, in order to get this job done, we got to get the seats out and the rear firewall, if you will, in order to get access to the fuel tank. And also I'm going to be taking out the rear trunk here in order to get access to the top of the engine and the fuel rail. All right, so now that the seats and the firewall and the rear storage area is out, we have access to the top of the fuel tank as well as the top of the engine and the fuel rail. So the line that we are after is going to be right here. This is your supply line. It runs down, up through there, and all the way up to the fuel rail. So this is a breather tube from the tank, and that breathes right into the roll cage, if you will, up underneath. But the line we are going to be replacing is going to be the supply line. So there's a couple things that need to be done in order to get this off. The first one is going to be unplugging the fuel pump, which is obviously this assembly right here, and the plug is right there. So we'll get to that from the rear tire, kind of around the back there. And then after you unplug that, you're going to want to turn the machine on for a couple seconds to relieve the pressure out of that supply line, right? And then you're going to shut it off. I'm going to disconnect the battery, and we'll get to unclipping the supply line. All right, so I just disconnected the fuel pump. I just started the engine and let the fuel pressure alleviate, and I just disconnected the battery. Now, you're probably asking yourself, why am I doing all this for a fuel rail pressure sensor? Well, right here is going to be your fuel rail pressure sensor. And from Polaris, you can't get just the sensor, you have to get the entire fuel line. So with that being said, I got to replace the whole fuel line with a new sensor. There's just a couple clips and a couple zip ties here, and it should come right out. All right, so I've gone ahead and taken some compressed air just around this area to kind of blow off any dirt, dust, debris. You're going to want to keep this area really clean. You don't want anything getting inside the fuel pump, and likewise up on the fuel rail. So just wipe that down. I also want to mention I did take a little compressed air to this vent tube and blew that out until I could hear air coming out the other side, which I did. So just want to make sure that's free and clear as well. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and take this blue clip right here, kind of get in here with your fingers, and that's it. Just slides out like that, and then this should pop right off very carefully. You get a little bit of fuel, but not too bad. All right, so now that ends off. I'm gonna kind of put that up here, and then what I'm also gonna do is take a rag or paper towel, and I'm just gonna put it right in here, just kind of block off the end, prevent anything from getting on that, maybe inside of it. So there's that. All right, now that we got the fuel pump side of the fuel line disconnected, we're gonna keep following that line. So I see a couple clips right here. I see a zip tie, and then I see one more clip right here. So we're gonna keep working our way around, and I'm gonna get these undone real quick, and then we're gonna move on to the zip ties on the fuel pressure sensor. All right, so I've gone ahead and snipped those zip ties holding the sensor on. Moving to the back now, there's two things that we need to do. First one is gonna be disconnecting the connector right here to the sensor. Next is going to be disconnecting that little green tab from the fuel rail. And that's gonna do it for taking the fuel line off. So let me do that, and then we'll get to putting the new one on. All right, so I've gotten the old fuel line off. You can see it right here. Here's a new one right here. And I think what I'm gonna do is take like a paper towel and kind of block off the ends here. That way when I'm feeding it back through the machine, I don't get any dirt on the ends here and contaminate it. So Let me do that real quick, and then what we're gonna do is just feed it right back in the way it came out, and we'll start hooking stuff up. All right, so I got a little ahead of myself and I hooked everything back up. Pretty self-explanatory. You just slide it on, slide that clip down, locks into place. I reconnected the connector right here to the sensor. All right. You can see right there, zip tied everything into place again. Keep following it along. Down into here. Boom, right in the fuel pump, same concept with the blue tab. Just slide that back into place, it's locked in. Highly recommend you, take a paper towel to the end of these lines. I got a lot of dirt on the paper towel when I was feeding it back through, so it's a good thing I did that. Triple checked everything, made sure everything was in the right place, it was all tight. Now, I already put the battery back on, plugged in the fuel pump again, so it's time to prime the system. I'm just gonna give the key a couple turns without starting it, just to prime that line with fuel, check for leaks, and fire it up and see what we got. All right, so as you saw there, machine fired up, no problems, no leaks. One final thing I'm gonna do just for fun is throw a seat in it before I put all the plastics and everything back on. Take it up and down the road here and just double check everything, make sure there's still no leaks, and then I'm gonna throw everything back together. Just got back from a test run and the machine seems to be running great. If this video helped you at all, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.